Okay, so some review from today. This is where we're going to end up, which is in what's called the multi-track view. But just from some review from today, if I wanted to simply make a sound file, I could just say file new, audio file, and that's going to be just what's called a waveform, meaning that it's just an individual audio track. And we remember sample rate. Sample rate is basically you're going to want to match whatever the sample rate of your recorder is to the sample rate of Adobe Audition or whatever sound editor you're using. So let's say that you recorded your Zoom microphone. Let's say that that records at a sample rate of 48,000 hertz. You want to match that to whatever sound editor you're recording on. Channels, you always want to select stereo because nobody really uses mono anymore. And you probably, even if you have access to a 5.1 surround sound system, I doubt you know how to edit for that, and I can't really teach you it. So you want to just do stereo where you have left and then right. As far as, this would be if you were wearing headphones, left ear, right ear. And on a TV that has stereo sound, it would be, this would be the left channel, this would be your right channel. Bit depth, I'm going to keep it at 32 bits for bit depth and say OK. And then just to show you and remind you what certain waveforms look like and what are some standard voice things that you want to edit out and what those waveforms look like, let me go ahead and start recording myself. So you'll see that for whatever reason, it's now getting over into kind of that red territory. I'm wondering if that maybe has to do with, yeah, so some of that actually has to do with, I think, my laptop's audio. But in any case, it looks like a standard, just me talking. But you'll notice when you start editing waveforms a little bit more, or you can just pay attention to what I'm telling you so that you know this already. When people breathe in really kind of heavily, or when they kind of click their teeth like that, or when they, pop their P's, sometimes that's a little bit less noticeable, but especially when they hiss their S's, that's going to be a really noticeable waveform. So let me pause this, and we'll go back through some of this. Let me see, when did I start doing the really kind of... So yeah, you can see if you zoom really far in, you can kind of tell that this particular waveform, it looks a lot smaller than everything else around it. It also has a very kind of specific, it kind of looks like a cumulus cloud look to it. And then I actually do see these little spikes here that I might have, kind of sucked on my teeth a little bit without realizing it. Anytime that you see a really big line, whenever there's this much space where you don't really see waveforms kind of hitting that -3 decibel or negative whatever number decibel mark, usually that tells you that that's when somebody is just not even talking or they're taking a very long pause. So let's see what we can edit out without making this sound awkward. Now, if you edit out too much, it will sound awkward because I'm just going to take it from here to like here, and it's probably going to sound really funky because I'm taking too much out of my voice. And let's see how that sounds. Breathe in really kind of heavily. Yeah, I'm going from one thought to the next a lot faster than most people would. So sometimes you want to leave pauses in. Let's see if that's the case here. Breathe in really kind of... Yeah, no, you don't need all of that. So making sure that we're not hitting anything that we would actually use, I'm going to go ahead and take all of this out. But notice I'm leaving a little bit of space before the next time I start speaking and a little bit of space after I've talked the first time. So there is still a pause there, but it doesn't last for anywhere nearly as long as it otherwise would have. Let's see. Breathe in really kind of heavily, or when they... Yeah, and I can edit out, again, most of that. And then remember these little spikes. So like these little spikes right here. Oop, don't want the whole thing highlighted. These little, like this spike right here, this spike right here, those are going to be where I'm clicking my teeth a little bit. So you'll see spikes for that. But then again, all of this can go because it's a really long pause that I don't need. And they kind of click their teeth like that. And I edited it out to where it still sounds natural. It's just less of a pause than it was there before. And now we're going to see the S, the hiss.
Hiss. Their S's.
Yeah, and you can really tell when somebody hisses their S's because it's going to be, this type of waveform. This really specific kind of look to it. So if I get rid of that,
Hiss their S's.
I took off a little bit too much there, so I probably want, like a little bit of the part of the S to still be in there.
Hiss their S's. That's going to be...
Sounds a little bit more natural. But those are some waveforms to look out for, things that you would want to edit out if you can or if there's a reason. Now, hello. Now, if there is somebody who, it adds to the story that they took a really long pause before answering your question, obviously you want to leave that in. This is just for when somebody is like pausing for a very long time for no reason and they ask you to repeat the question. Long pauses like that, you can just edit out because there's no reason for you to have those in like a soundbite. So be careful with why you're leaving pauses in or why you're editing them out. And if you're editing out sussives or plosives for people, usually that's just kind of a courtesy thing. But if you're talking about how somebody has a lisp and that's the story, obviously don't edit that out. But I'm going to go ahead and show you multi-track because I think this thing only records for about 15 minutes, so you don't have to hear me much longer than that. I'm going to click on multi-track. I already have a multi-track made, but I'm going to go ahead and make a new one. So File, New, Multi-track Session. And I'm just going to call this Multi-track Teach. And then you see the sample rate, the bit depth, and the master all. Keep those all the same as whatever waveforms, to the extent that you can. Try to keep that the same as whatever waveforms you've already made. And then you do have templates here, like if you wanted to make a rock band or a podcast, Adobe Audition does have some, like here's the standard multi-track, what that would look like for you, but it's not really necessary. I'm just going to say okay. And now I'm going to bring in, so let's say that you interviewed somebody who was a guitar player and you had some natural sound, quote unquote, with guitar. That was the only thing I could access just from my room at home. I'm going to bring in the voice track, which I think, was this the one? See, now I have 3 voice tracks and I'm not sure which is which, so let me listen to this.
When they hiss their S's, that's going to be a really noticeable loop.
Okay, so yeah, that's the one that I want to bring into my multi-track. So all I have to do for that is to click and drag, and that'll be the speaking that I just did. Now let's say that I wanted to have some natural sound underneath my voice, meaning that my voice is the clearest thing, but then I have some natural sound under it. So let me get the guitar track, and none of these are actually clipped, which it's kind of bizarre. I can't seem to clip anything today. Nothing seems to go all the way over to the right in the VU meters. But if I just try to drag this in and have this underneath my voice, obviously what's going to happen is it's going to overpower my voice pretty badly, and it's going to sound like crap.
I'm going to go ahead and start recording myself, so you'll see that
So like I can't even hear me talking. So one way to fix that, there's a couple different things you can do. Now see where I hover over with my mouse and it says volume? I can adjust. I can in fact click anywhere in here and create little dots. If there's maybe a part that I want to be a little bit louder or less loud, I can click on these little dots, and like this part can be just super low and it can fade in, or I can have this part be super high. If I can drag the dots anywhere, and that's going to change how the volume is on that particular track. So all I did was just click with my mouse on this line that says volume, and I can adjust.
So you'll see that for whatever reason,
So see how that fades in and out? But if instead I just want to have the entire thing as a track below my voice, but not solo. And I don't want to actually grab a dot at this point. I want to grab the entire thing, which would mean I'd have to get rid of these dots. So instead of messing around with the dots, here, let me see, can I? Yeah, instead of messing around with that, I'm just going to, if I just take everything down to like negative 15. Now this is the reason that sometimes you don't want to use dots. There is a way to get rid of them, but for now, because I only have 15 minutes on the video, if I just take all of these down to whatever decibel level I want these at, so that my voice is above them, but I can still hear it.
So you'll see that for whatever reason, it's now getting over.
So there is a place where I could get this at a certain decibel level where I could still hear this in the background, but my voice would still be more powerful, so that my voice is coming over whatever this is. Now, if I wanted to insert natural sound in between, like a pause in my voice, the way I could do that is, let me look for a pause in my voice. No, sorry. I think this will probably be good. Yeah, so here, what I can do is I can select what's called my move tool, and just move it between, you see where, I start talking, there's this little that I can edit out later. In fact, I can just click on this, and it looks like it's happening around like the 20-ish second mark, so yeah, I'll just get rid of this altogether. This file is referenced to auction may change duration of file, yes, yes, yes. That's all good. I'll go back to voice clip session, or no, multi-track teach. And so now I've edited out that entire pause section. And what I can do is I can make this short enough that it is only filling in this little gap. So I literally just click and drag this, and now it's only filling in that little gap. But let's say that this is not the part of the natural sound I want to select. Well, I still only want it to last about this long. So what I can do is I can take what's called my slip tool and just start selecting, like, there's the part of the natural sound that I want. So let's see how that sounds now.
Like a standard, just me talking. But you'll notice when...
Yeah, so if I just want that and that's the only part of the sound that I really want to go in that gap, I can use my slip tool and only select that part.
Just me talking. But you'll notice when you start editing...
And again, you can also, take the volume down over here. That'll completely take down the volume for whatever is on this particular part of your multi-track session. You can do the same thing with my voice. The last thing I'm going to show you, so you can also do what's called solo, which means that you won't hear my voice at all, even if the playhead, this thing is called the playhead, is going through it. So the only thing that you'll hear is that guitar. You can say ARM for record, which means that you're about to record onto a multi-track. I would advise against that because I'd rather you just have everything recorded before you brought it in. And then, of course, you can mute a particular track if you want everything else but that track to be heard. So the MS and R are pretty straightforward. Mute, solo, and ARM for record. But that's how you would add the natural sound in if you didn't have an entire sound bed going. Now, if you wanted for the guitar track to last as long as my voice does, that's a little bit different. And of course, you would want to, have this on the entire second track. And then if you needed to insert any other sounds in the middle of pauses, you could. But this is what multi-track looks like. And the basic idea is just, where is sound being played? How loud is the sound? Usually you want the voice that's on top to be the loudest thing. Things that are on, second and third tracks to be a little bit lower, typically when you set it up. But that is the very, very basics of Adobe Audition. What I'll probably do, because this is only a 15-minute video, is ask for more questions on Monday, and then we can get a little bit more in depth with audio editing before we get into interviewing. But that's all I'll show you for today. So I will see y'all on Monday, and please do let me know if you have any further questions, what you need to know.